The night was quiet, but the sound of gloves pounding against flesh echoed in the empty gym. Sweat glistened on the fighters' faces, their muscles tense with every strike, their eyes focused with intensity. It wasn't just a workout, this was the beginning of a journey. A journey not just of strength, but of heart. A path that would lead to something far greater than anyone could predict. This is the story of how warriors rise, how champions are made, and how you can get better at the art of mixed martial arts. MMA isn't just a sport, it's a lifestyle. It's not only about throwing punches or performing submissions. It's about strategy, mindset, and an unbreakable will to fight. To step into the cage requires more than physical ability, it demands mental resilience, technical mastery, and an understanding of the very essence of combat. The legends we watch today didn't just wake up one day with a belt around their waist, they spent countless hours pushing their limits, overcoming personal obstacles, and refining their skills. And if you want to follow in their footsteps, you need to know what it takes to be better, not just once, but continuously. Every fighter has a moment, a spark that ignites the fire. Maybe it's a loss, maybe a victory, but what truly matters is what you do afterward. That's where the real work begins. Think about it, how did the greatest fighters hone their craft? They didn't simply rely on their natural talent or their ability to take hits. They studied, they trained, they embraced failure. They pushed themselves further than they thought possible. They understood that greatness doesn't come overnight, it's built, one day at a time, in the gym, in the mind, and on the streets of the world outside. But what does it really mean to get better at MMA? How do you level up when you're already doing everything right? The answer isn't simple. It's not just about memorizing moves or mimicking techniques from the best. It's about understanding the game, adapting to your own strengths, and exploiting the weaknesses of your opponent. Every fighter must become a student of the sport, constantly learning, evolving, and innovating. One of the first lessons is that you can't fight the same way forever. The sport changes, your body changes, and the strategies evolve. Let's take a closer look at the training process. No, it's not just about sweating through endless rounds of sparring or running miles each morning. It's about having the right mindset. A mindset that tells you to keep going when your body is telling you to stop. A mindset that allows you to see beyond the current moment and into the next move, the next challenge, the next step in your journey. The fighters who reach the top don't just have skill, they have an unshakable belief in themselves and a strategy that adapts with each fight. Think about the moments before a match. The silence. The tension. The fighters stand there, facing their destiny, ready to test everything they've worked for. They know that, in the end, it's not just about who has the better technique or the faster hands. It's about who can adapt, who can keep their cool when things aren't going as planned, and who can outlast the other when the fight goes deep into the later rounds. These are the moments where legends are born, where champions are made. And yet, it's in those very moments that you'll often see the fighters who rise to the occasion, those who take the art of MMA seriously, who train with an obsession to be better every day. But what if I told you that you're missing one key element in your training that could change everything for you? What if everything you've been doing up until now, your hours of sparring, your dedication to conditioning, your technical drills, was only part of the equation? What if I told you there's one more thing you need to understand if you truly want to elevate your game to the level of a legend? That's the part that we need to dive into next. The path to greatness is never clear-cut. There are always twists and turns, and the deeper you go, the more you realize there's still so much to learn. You have to be willing to face not just your opponents, but your own limitations, your own doubts. You must embrace the struggle because, in MMA, the true test isn't how you fight, it's how you respond to everything else. It's about overcoming the setbacks, the moments of failure, and coming back stronger every time. But before we go any deeper, let's stop here for a moment. Because right now, there's something crucial you need to know. Something so fundamental to your growth that it could change the trajectory of your entire career. something the legends you admire all had to learn for themselves. But the question remains, are you ready to take that leap? Will you be able to face the challenges ahead, and more importantly, will you be able to conquer the hardest fight of all, the fight within? The next part of this story is going to answer those questions. It's going to reveal the secret to becoming not just a good fighter, but a true legend. And it all begins with a choice. Will you take the first step? Or will you stay where you are, wondering what could have been? The clock is ticking, and there's no turning back. The next chapter is waiting. Are you ready for it? The gym was nearly empty, save for the few fighters who still had the energy to push through their final rounds. The lights above flickered slightly as the clock on the wall ticked down, reminding everyone that time was running out, that the fight was nearly here. The journey from the first steps in the gym to this moment had been long. Painful, even. But now, after all the blood, sweat, and tears, it was time to prove everything you'd worked for. This wasn't just about technique anymore, it was about heart. Your body was bruised, tired, and begging for a break, but your mind stayed sharp. Every instinct told you to slow down, to rest, but you couldn't. Not now. The pressure was mounting, but the clarity was undeniable. You trained for years fighting, failing, learning. And now it all came down to one thing, the fight in front of you. The legendary moment that could define your career. It wasn't just about being good anymore, it was about being better than the version of yourself from yesterday. But just as you were preparing to step into the cage, doubt crept in. What if you weren't ready? What if all those hours of training weren't enough? Every great fighter has faced this moment, the doubt, the fear that maybe you're not as prepared as you thought. It's a normal feeling, one that even the legends felt. But that's the point. It's how you respond to that feeling that makes you who you are. Then, in the silence of your thoughts, you hear it, your coach's voice, sharp and confident. It cuts through the noise, pulling you back to reality. This is what you've trained for. You're ready. Now show the world who you are. The words hit hard. They were the reassurance you needed, the confidence that your preparation had been worth it. You were ready to go out there and give everything you had. With a deep breath, you step forward, the door to the cage opening in front of you. The crowd roars, but it fades into the background as you enter, your opponent already waiting, eyes locked onto yours. As the bell rings, time seems to slow. Every movement feels calculated, every strike purposeful. You're no longer just reacting, you're controlling the fight. Each punch lands with precision, each defense executed with finesse. The energy in the cage shifts, and you feel it. This is your moment, your time to shine. The crowd's cheers fade, replaced by the rhythmic beat of your heart. Every jab, every takedown, is a step closer to victory. But then, just when victory seemed assured, something unexpected happens. Your opponent, a fighter known for his unrelenting speed and vicious counterattacks, finds an opening, a tiny crack in your defense. Before you can react, he connects, landing a blow that sends a shockwave of pain through your body. For a split second, everything goes black. The crowd's noise is deafening, but all you can hear is the ringing in your ears, the dizzying feeling that comes from a blow so precise it leaves you stunned. You stagger back, disoriented, but there's no time to recover. You know that if you let up for even a moment, this fight is over. Every part of you screams for relief, for the chance to catch your breath, but you push through, relying on instincts. The sweat drips down your face, mixing with the grit of the fight, but you refuse to give up. You refuse to let one mistake define you. The next few moments are a blur of movement. Your opponent presses his advantage, but you're no longer reacting. You're adapting. You slip under his next attack, countering with a combination that lands squarely on his chin. He stumbles. The crowd erupts. It's not over yet. And then, in an instant, everything changes. Your opponent, though shaken, smiles. The kind of smile that's more sinister than reassuring. You're confused. This wasn't part of the plan. You've seen this before, a fighter's final trick, the moment where the fight falls away and you see what they're truly capable of. Something inside you shifts. A new awareness rises. This wasn't just a physical battle, it was a battle of minds, a test of wills. You were never just facing a fighter, you were facing a game plan, a strategy, something far deeper than anything you had prepared for. But then, as you prepare for the final push, something completely unexpected happens. You hear the sound of footsteps behind you. At first, you think it's a trick of the mind, a moment of desperation. But then it hits you, someone is coming into the cage. Your eyes flicker to the side, and you see a figure, cloaked in shadow, stepping toward the ring. Your heart skips a beat. Who is this person? What do they want? The sudden interruption pulls your focus. In that split second of uncertainty, the final bell rings, and the fight ends. The decision is made, but the outcome isn't what you expected. You've just stepped into a new world, one that's far bigger than the fight you just had. The cage wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Now, as the crowd continues to cheer or jeer, all you can think of is the mysterious figure moving toward you, their eyes fixed on yours. What do they want? And more importantly, what do they know about the fight that you don't? With your heart racing and the adrenaline still pumping, you're faced with a new challenge, a challenge that could change everything. What lies beyond the cage, in the shadows of the sport, might just be more dangerous than anything you've ever faced. The mysterious figure approaches slowly, their footsteps deliberate and purposeful. The crowd's roar begins to fade into the background as you focus on them, trying to make sense of what's happening. The cage feels suddenly smaller, the space tighter. Your body, still reeling from the fight, seems to buzz with uncertainty, and for a moment, it's as if time itself has stopped. Who is this person? Why are they here? Your opponent, equally confused, stands frozen in place. The officials, who were preparing to announce the winner, are just as bewildered. This was supposed to be a moment of triumph, of glory, but now, all of that is overshadowed by this unexpected intruder. The fighter before you, the one who had once been your opponent, no longer seems as important. The game has changed. The focus is on the person approaching the cage, and you have no idea what to expect. As they get closer, you start to see them more clearly. It's a man, tall and imposing, his face partially obscured by the hood of his jacket. His eyes, however, are clear, sharp, calculating, and unblinking as they lock with yours. For a moment, neither of you moves. It's like a battle without words, as if you're silently assessing one another. And then, finally, he speaks. You're good. But you're not ready, he says, his voice low, almost a whisper in the noise of the crowd. Your heart skips a beat. Who is this guy to judge you? You just fought your hardest, put everything you had into that battle. But then again, there's something in his tone that makes you pause. He's not threatening, he's calm, almost knowing. Ready for what? You ask, your voice a mixture of exhaustion and curiosity. The fight is over, but this new challenge is just beginning. The man steps closer, his gaze never leaving yours. The officials stand by, unsure of what to do. The crowd's murmurs are growing louder now, but you're too focused on this stranger to care. Ready for what comes next, he replies cryptically. This isn't just about physical strength or technical ability. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to become. Are you ready for the truth? His words hit harder than anything you've felt before. You've always believed that the next fight, the next victory, would bring answers. But this feels different. The tension in the cage grows as his presence fills the space, and for the first time, you realize something. You've been looking at MMA the wrong way all this time. You came in thinking it was about becoming the best fighter. You trained to be stronger, faster, smarter. But this man, this stranger, has just shown you that there's more to it. Much more. It's not just about physical power or technique, it's about the mind. The true battle isn't against an opponent in the cage, it's against yourself. It's about overcoming the limitations you've set for yourself and unlocking your full potential. But how far are you willing to go? Who are you? You demand, the question slipping out before you can stop it. The man looks at you, his expression unreadable. He pauses for a moment, as if considering whether to answer. Then, he speaks again, his voice even lower this time, as if revealing something that's been hidden for years. Someone who's seen the dark side of this sport, he says, his eyes darkening slightly. Someone who knows what happens when you keep pushing, when you start going down a path that others don't dare follow. But you're different. I can see it. You've got something that most fighters never find. And that's why I'm here. To help you. To show you the way. A chill runs down your spine as you try to make sense of his words. You've spent years working towards this moment, fighting for this dream. And yet, here he is, telling you that everything you thought you knew might not be enough. You feel a knot tighten in your stomach. This is no longer just a fight for a title or recognition. This is a fight for something deeper, something more personal. The real question isn't whether you're good enough for the sport, it's whether you're ready for what comes after. What's your game? You ask, trying to mask the unease creeping in. He looks around, his eyes sweeping over the ring, the officials, and the crowd. For a moment, it's as though he's calculating something in his mind. Finally, he answers. Look at them, he says, gesturing toward the audience. They see the winners, the champions. They cheer for the glory, the fast cars, the fame. But they don't see what's beneath the surface. They don't see what you have to give up to become a true legend. It's not about winning titles, it's about the journey. About how far you're willing to go. What kind of person you're willing to become in the process. The words hit you harder than any punch could. You think back to all the sacrifices you've made, the time away from family, the physical pain, the doubts that creep in when no one's watching. Was it all worth it? Was it truly about becoming a champion, or was there something more to it? Something beyond the cage, beyond the fights, that you've been ignoring all along? His gaze shifts back to you, and you can feel the weight of his words settling in. So what's next? You ask, the uncertainty in your voice clear. What do I do now? He tilts his head slightly, as if seeing something in you that wasn't there before. You train harder. But not just your body, your mind. You've only scratched the surface. There's a place for you, a higher level of fighting, but it's not just about fighting anymore. It's about becoming something no one else can be. For a brief moment, the world seems to pause. The enormity of what he's saying begins to sink in. This isn't just about training harder, winning more fights, or making a name for yourself. It's about something deeper, something you've been too focused on the surface to realize. It's about personal evolution, and evolution that requires you to give up everything you thought you knew and to embrace something completely new. But before you can respond, the man turns, heading toward the edge of the cage. Think about it, he says over his shoulder. I'll be waiting when you're ready. With that, he walks out of the ring, disappearing into the shadows just as quickly as he appeared. The officials are still frozen, unsure of how to proceed, but you're left standing there in the middle of the cage, your mind racing. The crowd's cheers seem distant now, almost irrelevant. Everything you thought you knew about MMA, about what it takes to be a legend, has just been turned upside down. The true fight isn't over. In fact, it's just begun. As the lights in the arena dim and the sounds of the crowd fade away, you realize that your journey has taken a turn you didn't expect. The man's words echo in your mind. It's not just about winning titles, it's about the journey. You don't know what's next. But one thing is certain, this fight has changed you. You're no longer fighting for a title. You're fighting for something deeper, something that might change the sport forever. And whatever happens next, you're ready. Because the true test of a fighter isn't in the cage, it's in the heart.